This is a Queen Bee Radio High School sports presentation.
Welcome to another edition of the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. The winter sports postseason is wrapping up. We just finished the girls basketball state tournament, and we're joined by the guy who called all the action from the Ref Center in Green Bay, Mark Evenstad. And Shark, what an entertaining state tournament it was for both Cuba City and Albany Monticello, as well as Argyle Pecatonica, 3 teams from Southwest Wisconsin up in Green Bay. But let's start off in Division 4 with Cuba City, where they made it to the state championship game. Got there with a 48-45 win over McDonald Central, and then lost in the state title game to Laconia, 47-43. But let's start off with that first game, Shark, because it was a gritty basketball game for Cuba City. It was a late steal by Ashley Rowe that got Cuba City the lead, and then a free throw to make it a 3-point game. But my goodness, what a showing by the Cuba City Cubans in both games up in Green Bay.
Yeah, it seemed like all of the games at the state tournament were very close. And in the case of McDonald Catholic, they were the Division 5 state champions last year. They bumped up to a division in Division 4, and they showed that they were very much up to the task, going toe-to-toe with Cuba City. And then I thought maybe this game was going to go into overtime. But Ashley Rowe came up with that big steal. She knew exactly what she wanted to do with it once she stole the ball, and that was race toward the other end, got the basket. McDonald Catholic tried to get another shot off, did not, and that sent Olivia Olson to the free throw line after a foul, and she made 1 of 2. I think she purposely missed that second free throw so that then McDonald Catholic couldn't grab it and call a timeout if they had any timeouts remaining, just to keep the ball in play and the clock rolling, and it ended 48-45.
Yep, and then the championship game against Laconia on Saturday, the Cubans fall short 47-43, and just kind of seeing the scoring updates, especially in the second half. Very back and forth game with Laconia, and Laconia is a powerhouse team in their own right. They've been to the tournament every single year since 2019. So Laconia is a tough out for anyone, but Cuba City, I don't think that they have anything to be disappointed about. A fantastic season against a very good Laconia team in the championship.
They had the lead at halftime, 25-21, and then Laconia got off to a nice start for the second half and got the lead, but this thing just kept on going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you had to wonder if that game would end up going into overtime. And it was just simply the fact that Laconia got the last points of the ball game, but scoring was at a premium in that game, Tyler, because you saw where somebody like Olivia Olson, who averages around 22 points a game, had only 8 in that game. You saw where Dia Chris was held below her average too. But the same was true for the Stars for Laconia. They were being held, they're held in check by Cuba City's outstanding defense. And their top scorer was held scoreless throughout the first half of the game and did end up with 6 points for the game. In fact, her first 2 baskets of the second half ignited that little bit of a rally to begin the second half to push them out in front. So, yeah, free throw percentages down, shooting percentages down. And of course, there's a lot of factors that explain that. The size of the venue, playing in such a vast location, backgrounds, and of course nerves, and all those things that kind of explains why you'll see lower than normal shooting percentages and scoring.
And what's really great about Cuba City is that pretty much all their players are going to be returning next year as well. So you would anticipate that the Cubans are maybe looking for a bit of revenge as they head into next season. And this is a very accomplished group of girls. Many of them on the volleyball team that went to state earlier this sports season. So the Cubans are certainly a major threat in Division 4 next year.
Did you say just about everybody will be back? How about everybody will be back? This was a team with no seniors and outstanding players as juniors, as sophomores, and as freshmen.
Yep, it's going to be a fun team to keep an eye on next season. Congratulations to the Cuba City Cubans on their fantastic season. Let's go into Division 5 now, where the game that you called on Friday between two Six Rivers East rivals, the newly found co-ops of Albany Monticello and Argyle Pecatonica, and Albany Monticello defeating Argyle Peck in the third matchup between these two teams on the season. Argyle Peck won the first two matchups, but Albany Monticello getting some revenge at the state tournament, 37-31, in what was a gritty defensive battle between these two teams. Field goal shooting at a premium in this one. What did you take away from Albany Monticello's win against Argyle Peck?
Well, and again, it was the same story, which, who knows, nerves set in, good defense. Those two teams could not have made it to the rest center unless they had really good defenses, and they did. And they're somewhat familiar with each other. When it comes to Albany Monticello, a well-coached team. I have known Derek Dasher for quite some time, outstanding coach. Very, very fun to watch while he's on the sidelines too. Very animated. But this was an Albany Monticello team that was determined to set aside those setbacks that they had against Argyle Pecatonica. They matched up well, and they got the win in the end to get the chance to play for a state championship.
Yep, and the Space Stallions were able to advance to the championship game where they defeated Lena in overtime, 57-54, in what was a very entertaining state championship game in Division 5. We didn't broadcast it, but you were there as that was the game before the Cuba City Laconia game, and it was a three-pointer late to tie it up, and then it was Albany Monticello that was able to come away with the win in OT. Talk about that championship game. That was incredible.
Oh, well, Tyler, first off, the Space Stallions, this is kind of an unofficial nickname, but they're referred to as Albany Monticello Comets, Albany being the lead program, but they were down by 5 points with 23 seconds remaining. Now, maybe the average person says, boy, that's not much time to overcome that, but they got a basket to pull to within 3, and then they got a turnover, and then finally, Abby Hollis drained a 3, literally at the buzzer. Didn't come right at the buzzer, but just before it, to tie the game and send it in overtime at 50 apiece. And then in overtime, Albany Monticello went to work to get the lead and hold off Lena. And it's funny, too, Monticello, as a standalone program, did have a state championship. That occurred in 1991 as the Monticello Ponies. Who'd they beat in that state championship game? The team they beat just this weekend, Lena, in the state championship game. Albany, yeah, when it comes to girls basketball, they really don't have what you could call a signature season. Boys, yes, but girls, they have not been known as that. But they were the lead program for Albany Monticello, and Derek Dasher talked about it, how they just haven't had the numbers, Monticello, the last several years. So this was a great way for them to be able to keep involved in a basketball program.
Yep, and Albany Monticello does graduate a few seniors, from that program. But looking at Argyle Pecatonica, of course, falling short in the semifinal matchup, they are pretty much reloaded for next year. Kylie Butler, just a sophomore. Brooke Weldnitz, a freshman. Those complementary, players, the Tisch girls, they're, very much in the mix. What do you make of both of those teams' chances as they head into next year?
Well, they have a lot to look forward to. There's no doubt about it. And again, well coached. Well, Jen Wellnitz-Krogman, you can tell this has been on her mind for a while. Mm-hmm. I want to be a coach. I want to coach a Southwest Wisconsin team, and I want to win. And she's doing just that. Yep,
and it's very reminiscent, as we mentioned last week, of those old school Blackhawk teams that Jen Wellnitz used to play on, and Jen Wellnitz-Krogman mentioning on social media earlier this week that the revenge tour will begin next year, hoping to get that team back to state next year. What a fun team and what a fun season. And when you look at girls basketball as a whole this season, my goodness, Shark, what an outstanding season for girls basketball. A number of local teams, reaching the sectional round, and teams having a lot of success. What's some of your favorite moments from this year?
Well, one of them was, of course, the state tournament. And it's funny, when I saw Jen Wellnitz-Krogman prior to the game. And, she knew me and I knew her because, we go back a good 10 years. I said, Jen, great to see you. The last time I saw you, you were terrorizing the Six Rivers East as a member of Blackhawk. And she laughed. She goes, oh, my gosh, that was 10 years ago. I said, I remember it well, though. I remember it well. But, this season, we saw a lot of really good teams. There's some teams that didn't make it to the state tournament and probably could have, a little bit of luck, a bounce here, a bounce there. Mm-hmm. Who knows what the teams would have been if any of those teams that fell short made it all the way to the rest center in Green Bay. But each and every year you'll see that team that's kind of the juggernaut, and Cuba City, I think, kind of qualifies in that because they missed out on the state tournament last year. Mm-hmm. and just barely when they lost to La Crosse Aquinas. They were looking to win the game in the closing seconds with a 3, but an errant pass that was stolen and then taken in for a score right at the buzzer, finished off that. And I think ever since that moment, Cuba City was determined to say that we want to get to the rest center in Green Bay. And they got it done. And they'll have a very excellent opportunity to try to do it again next year. But again, who knows? There's a lot of factors that go into that. Certainly injuries could play a factor in some of that stuff for some teams. So whoever can stay healthy and whoever plays well and plays consistent, they'll probably have the best chance.
Yep, and we will see what that season looks like next year. But that puts a bow on our girls basketball coverage for the season. Thanks for joining us, Shark, for the recap from the state tournament. A very fun and festive state tournament over the past weekend. Congratulations again to Cuba City, runners-up in Division 4, and Albany Monticello, the state champions in Division 5. Coming up next, Steve Prestegard will join me to recap the boys basketball action as we send Mineral Point to the Cole Center, and Platteville falling just short of reaching the state tournament in Division 3. Steve and I will talk about that when the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup continues after this on YouTube and SoundCloud.
Check out Sups.com. Sups is Southwest Wisconsin's go-to supplement store. Find all your favorite supplement brands at the best prices from local people. Fuel your fitness journey. Sups.com, your go-to supplement store with locations in Fenimore and Dubuque.
This week's highlight reel is presented by Sups.com.
And a 3. Rims out. McLean on the rebound. And a throw-up that goes in for Tashner. And Tashner. And the 3. Bullseye for David Edge. And the 3. Bullseye from Edge. David Edge. Platteville back up 5. 32-27. Ryder for 3. And another rebound, this by Ryder, and he lays it in. 1:33 left for Supply first half. McLean gets past the defender and the back door. 30. Wide open, but not taking the shot. Now Tasher does the 3. Bullseye. Block shots, which are, of course, Big Block Midwest Realty block shots. And he scores again. And heads to the foul line. It was actually Ludlam this time. And fighting his way in is Lucas Ludlam, and it's 46-36. And a reset for Platteville. Ludlam to Tasher for 3. Bullseye. 7 seconds left. And we will see you Saturday. Platteville defeats Wisconsin Dells 84-67 to make their first trip to the sectional final since 1993.
Stops, kicks it back out. The 1,000 in the right corner. Dribble drive, 1,000, scoop, and score. He has it on the right side, kicks into the corner, wide open 3 is good. Reagan Jackson from downtown knocks down the first 3 of the game, and it's 3-2 Darlington. Passes it off to Ross. Gets it back to 1,000. 1,000 drives in the lane, hook shot, got it. Boy, Landon Thousand is on fire. He has 9 of Mineral Point's 9 points so far. It's 9-5. Pointers leading Darlington. Redbirds on the other end. 3 from the corner is good. By number 4, Reagan Jackson. That's his second 3. 13-8. Mineral Point leading. 11:16 to go first half. Top of the key, Busher has it. Right side, 3 by Long. Good. Brady Long hits his first 3 of the game, and it's 13-11. Passes into the corner to Gilly. Baseline drive. Puts it up. Scores. Tag Gilly. Off the bench has pumped in 2 buckets. And now Darlington has retaken the lead. 15-14. Hands it off right side. Falardo. Now way outside Wendhausen for 3, and he got it. Off the bench, Jackson Wendhausen drains a 3. 17-15 still, Mineral Point on top. Long brings it up for the Redbirds. Passes inside to Carter. Now kicks it out to Busher for 3, and he hits it. Broker Busher, first 3-pointer of the game for him. Will Murray, left wing, has it. Now passes up to Brady Long, top of the key for the Redbirds. He drives in, puts up a fadeaway off the glass, good. Thousand gives it out, right side, 3, Ashleman, got it. Drew Ashleman, first 3 of the game for him, 24-20. And Mineral Point takes it right back. Ross up the floor, passes back to Thousand, 26-24. Thousand drives the lane left, puts up the turnaround, and scores. Landon gives it back out to Ross, rotates Bomstead now to Lindsay. Lindsay, crossover dribble, step back 3, good! Eli Lindsay, top of the key, step back 3, 31-24. Passes off now to Lindsay into the corner. Ashleman off a screen, he'll drive the lane, stop, spin, off the window, scores! Tough shot by Drew Ashleman and a timeout taken by Darlington. This is a full timeout. 35-26, 56-38. That's going to be your final score. Mineral Point over Darlington. A difficult loss for the Redbirds after an incredible season. You knew somebody unfortunately had to lose this one, but what a performance by Mineral Point.
And then over at the left wing, back to Edge. And a pass into McLean, then back out. Tasher for 3. Bullseye! Harrison Tasher hits the 3. First points for Platteville. Drives into the lane, lays it up, misses the shot. Rebound by Ludlam. He brings it up the far side. Takes it all the way in for 2! Wow! Coast to coast. 22 for 22. 12-10. Here's a 3 from the corner. Bullseye! For David. For Simon Babel. Pass into McLean, then back out, then back to McLean. And over at the right wing. Top of the silo, 3. Bullseye! For Garrison Tashner. For the Warriors with 2:36 left in the first half. Edge deep left wing. To the corner and Babel, back to Edge. Back to Babel. Back to Edge up top. Now into lane. Slammed in by Zach McLean, and Platteville's back up. Tasher at the right wing. Lob to McLean. McLean goes in, goes over Ron, and gets the basket. Tasher gets it in to McLean, then back out to Edge. Edge for 3. Bullseye! Where does Platteville need that? 60-54, under 8 minutes left in the second half. Over in the corner is Edge, and Edge for 3. Bullseye! Edge for 3. Second half, corner 3, off the rim. Rebounded by McLean, and he puts it in. 64-61, timeout. It goes to Guzman, of course. Ball is loose and picked up by Guzman. And it is stolen. Platteville back the other way. Laid up and in. And the steal and score by Edge makes it 70-67. 29 seconds left. 24 seconds left, 72-67. Three for Kashner! Top of the silo.
1,000 in the lane, kicks to Lindsay, driving in the paint, down to the right corner. Drives in, now kicks out to 1,000, long three, got it! 1,000 driving in, tries to bank it in, off target, scramble for the rebound, 1,000 gets it, kicks out to Evenstad in the left corner. Now gets straight ahead for Alex Ross, and he knocks it down. 1,000 on the left wing, drops the shoulder, stops his dribble, skips it down low, off the window and in for Jake Phillips.
Over to Lindsay. Now Wenhausen, back to Lindsay. Lindsay, baseline, kicks out, 1,000, cuts it.
Ross loads up for three, got it! On the right side, works his way to the left corner, Alex Ross runs into a double team to Lindsay, left side of the paint, cross-court pass, catch and shoot three for 1,000, got it! And a timeout on the floor, taken by Randolph. Mineral Point 40, Randolph 22.
Backs out to near midcourt. He's guarded by Katzma. Now Evenstad in the corner, drives baseline, kicks to Radke. Floater, up and good. Lindsay goes over to Evenstad here on top of the perimeter. Evenstad drives inside, finds Radke. Radke gets the two to go off the glass. Now players on the floor, it's stolen away by Mineral Point. Ashelman, he'll take it all the way and gets two more off the glass. And it looks like Randolph will not foul Mineral Point. It's been 9 years for the Pointers, and as the clock strikes 0, the Pointers are Madtown bound. They punch their tickets to the 2024 WIAA State Tournament. Next week, your final score here, Mineral Point 68, Randolph 57.
Welcome to Shannon Marie Photography, where we specialize in turning memories into keepsakes. Based in Southwest Wisconsin, we offer a range of photography services, including weddings, senior portraits, and capturing precious moments with newborns and families. Our portfolio is a testament to the beauty and joy we've had the privilege to capture. Whether it's a bride and groom at sunset, a little boy with a big smile, or a newborn in a basket, we ensure each image is a treasure. Book your session today at shannonmariephoto.com.
Back on the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. It's now time to talk boys basketball, and I'm joined by the Platteville Truther, Steve Prestegard, and we'll talk about the Platteville Hillman's wrap to their season in just a bit. But first, let's talk about the Mineral Point Pointers. They punched their ticket to the Division IV state tournament with wins in the sectional round, defeating Darlington in what was the most recent game of the century, 56-38, winning the rubber match between those two programs before Mineral Point getting the win against Randolph on Saturday. So, Steve, let's first talk about the significance of the win against Darlington. It was a neutral site. It's a playoff game. Landon 1,000 in that game scored 27 points for the Pointers, and Mineral Point outscoring Darlington 30-16 in the second half. It was a jam-packed environment in Lancaster, and again, these are two teams that, not only were they, favorites in their conference, but two of the top teams in the state going head-to-head. Feels somewhat criminal that those two were going head-to-head in the sectional round, but a big win for Mineral Point on Thursday, which was kind of the linchpin for them reaching state with their win against Randolph.
Most definitely, it would seem that probably was the best team they played, to be asked about it in the postseason, at least coming up to going to state. It's one of those instances where they're playing for the third time. Nobody is going to be surprised at what somebody else does. I guess I wasn't surprised that Mineral Point won. I was surprised that the margin was really not close. I wouldn't have figured that to be the case, certainly. But Darlington, I thought, had an advantage going into the game that they might be able to be more physical. But that didn't apparently matter, because if you don't have a good night shooting, that kind of doesn't matter all that much. And the thing about Mineral Point is a very difficult team to try to play, because there's not one guy that you say, you got to stop him, and you win the game. They got a lot of guys who do a lot of different things on that team. And I think one person that I was impressed at Saturday, for instance, was Brady Radke.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Lindsey. Well, he's the inside guy, right? If you just look at his height and hadn't seen him play, but Radke did a great job inside Saturday, cleaning up underneath. Didn't score that many points, but Randolph kind of didn't do a really good job on him defensively, and got, I think, out rebounded when it counted, in the game. So, and 1,000, and the other people that they can bring in, they're just a very balanced team. And I always felt that those kinds of teams are really the most difficult to play against, because you can't key on one guy. You can't say we're going to play a zone except against this kid. You just have to play straight up and play really well. And I really think those are the hardest teams to play.
A very unselfish team. You see
that too. Yeah.
Throughout the season, Coach Dan Burson mentioned it during our pregame interview that throughout the season there have been 6 different leading scorers for Mineral Point. Throughout the season, and Jackson Wendhausen is the sixth man coming off the bench, and he's the leading 3-point shooter for the team, and also one of the top 3-point shooters in the state, earning him first team all conference honors. And if you have a first team all conference player coming off the bench, that speaks to the depth and to the unselfishness that a team like Mineral Point has. It doesn't matter who's scoring the basketball as long as someone's scoring the ball for the Pointers, and that certainly held true during the sectional round.
And I think that's the sort of, you look at teams that go far, and that's kind of where the game has become. It's not just those 5 guys, because what happens if somebody gets into foul trouble? You got to have somebody to help. And, Mineral Point had that with Wendhausen. Platteville had that with Myron Ryder. And some other people actually, during the course of the postseason run. Those are again the sorts of teams that, now who's this guy? Sort of moment when you're looking at those things. So I have to believe that Mineral Point got a really difficult season because Darlington was in it, and other teams had their moments also. And that really, I think, prepared them well for the postseason, particularly for the sectional final, even though it was a game they hadn't played in since the last time they went to state back or actually later than that, when they lost to Partyville in the sectional final. But they just are a very balanced team. They are very fundamentally sound. They play defense strongly, and that's a good recipe to make a trip to Madison.
Yep, and what was really impressive to me in the win against Randolph is that there were 4 players in double figures, and as the game went along, there weren't big runs in that game. It was maybe 5 or 6 points at most before a team would respond, and Mineral Point getting the 11-point win, 68-57. But when you looked at the first half stats in particular, it was 1,000 would have like 6 points. Radke would have 4 points. It wasn't any one specific player that was getting established. It was that unselfishness that we've been talking about. Being able to spread the basketball, just playing efficient basketball throughout that game, and that helped keep the momentum on their side, playing great basketball in the half court, and really neutralizing Randolph's attack, because Randolph had to scramble who's covering who, and just really seemed to disjoint anything that Randolph was trying to execute.
Well, you think about it, did you really feel like Randolph was really ever in the game?
Right.
I mean, you look up, oh boy, it's down to 12. But yeah, they were. It really felt as, and Randolph's a good team. There isn't any question about that. But you just never felt, Mineral Point never let them think they had a chance. Basically, from about 4 or 5 minutes in, it seemed like it was Mineral Point was totally in charge the entire game, and that's the sort of thing that is discouraging if you're. You look up, you're still down 12, you're now down 14. Okay, you got back to 12, but that's kind of how the whole game kind of felt like. I mean, my numbers may be off, but it just really felt like Randolph never really was, had a real serious push to get back into the game at all. And that's to the credit of Mineral Point, that their defense just didn't allow Randolph to get a chance to come back, basically.
And yeah, it's like you said with Mineral Point, just anytime that Randolph had some sort of momentum, there was an immediate answer. There was no real it was quickly taken away, which sets up the Pointers with a trip to the Kohl Center, their first trip since 2015. They take on the Cross Aquinas. We'll have that game on 97.7 Country, WGLR, and WGLR.com. The 2 seed taking on the 3 seed Aquinas, another small team having to take on Aquinas in the postseason. It feels like that's a recurring thing every single postseason across high school sports. But the winner of that game will take on the winner of Marathon and Kenosha St. Joseph. Obviously, all 4 teams very worthy of being there, but I think Mineral Point getting the 2 seed and just with the way that they've been playing, I mean, it feels like they can adapt to any sort of, offensive attack that other teams, might pose. I think they have the right complement of players. And, with the depth that they have, I'm sure Dan Burson has a number of different things that he has in his arsenal to manipulate the lineup and get the matchups that he likes.
Yeah. I think one thing that's going to be interesting to watch, and I think this is the case for anybody who's down in state, is if you have teams that have a lot of jump shooters, how are they going to react to the Kohl Center?
Right.
Which, think about it, the vast majority of gyms that we see wall.
Right.
Actually, Mineral Point's an exception to that because going one direction, of course, they have the big cover up of the other gym. But, for the most part, the shooting backdrops are pretty good.
It's much more open. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You go to the Kohl Center, and that's a cave back behind the baskets. And so that and the fact that I think that the only teams that get to state are really good defensive teams. That's generally the reason why state games tend to be low scoring compared to what you might see in the regular season. It's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to that. And I think one of the strategies possibly, Dan Burson, might say, early in the game, let's get the ball inside. Let's drive the basket, get it to Radke underneath, Lindsay, try to get it inside so that you get some confidence in your offense being able to score and your jump shooters can kind of work into the idea of, okay, that's where it is, because they get a shoot around, but it's only like 25 minutes in the Kohl Center, and I think it's on Wednesdays. So it's not like you get a great, feel for how the Kohl Center is when you got all those seats that seem like they're about 10 miles away. So I think that's one of the things that's going to be interesting to watch. The other thing, of course, and this is, Dan would know about this because he's coached at state before, TV timeouts, which, by the way, would be lovely at pre-state level. Yes. Just WIAA, in case you're watching. But what's interesting is that the length of the TV timeouts, there's a lot, you get 60 seconds for a timeout plus whatever the coach is able to, a couple of seconds. Don't forget this, whatever. But you've got like 2 minutes plus in the TV timeouts. And so I bet there's going to be a discussion before the game. It's like, what do you do during the timeouts? Because I'm not going to talk to you for 2 minutes. There's no reason to do that. So, you got a minute to get something to drink, kind of shake out anything like that, and then we'll talk or something like that. That's the sort of thing that they don't have any, a team that doesn't go to state doesn't have experience with. And in fact, nobody does going in because there are no games that have TV, media timeouts. So that's one of the things that's going to be a little different. And there are, I believe, 3 of them during each half. Right. Around like 14 minutes, about 9, about 4 or something like that. Right. But, the ultimate thing, it's about playing defense. And it's also shakes off the jitters. And, I think if you did a EKG test on all the players before the tip-off, their heart rate's probably going like 200 a minute, and the coaches are about 150 a minute, So that I think is going to be what, and the announcers are probably about a 120 a minute or
somewhere
so
in that
before,
ballpark,
before the tip-off. So I think it's, who plays defense best, and it's also about who gets into, who shakes off the, oh my God, it's state thing, and just plays their game. That's actually with Dan Burson, I think, was the first person. We have to be ourselves, and not try to do something that they're not this is not the way they play. Whoever plays their way the best, basically, that's the team that wins at state.
Yeah, and like you mentioned too, the fact that they're playing the latest game of the day, there is that kind of waiting period. You have the first semifinal game ahead of you, which could be the blessing and the curse, where you see the first game, kind of see how the game flows and stuff like that. But there's also the waiting where it's more of a mind game, type of thing, and we'll see how the Pointers adapt to that. That's exactly what happened in 2015. The Pointers did play in the final game on that Thursday evening session, and Dan Burson mentioning during our pregame interview for Thursday's game that he's kind of adapting to the similar schedule that they used for that. So we'll see how it pans out. For the Pointers, again, they take on La Crosse Aquinas in the first semifinal game on Thursday night around 8 o'clock on 97.7 Country WGLR. And if the Pointers do advance, they will take on the winner of Marathon and Kenosha St. Joseph on Saturday afternoon around 12:30. And we'll also have that on WGLR. Let's look at the Platteville Hillmen, who got to the sectional final. They got the win over Wisconsin Dells in the semifinal matchup, 64-54, before falling to Lakeside Lutheran 75-71. I was with you for the game against Lakeside Lutheran. What a fantastic basketball game that was. But let's talk about
the result. But yes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the result not so fun. But Platteville getting the win against Wisconsin Dells in the sectional semifinal in Dodgeville. You got to call that game on our Queen Bee Sports YouTube channel. Let's talk about the journey for the Hillmen during the sectional round, where a very accomplished season for the Hillmen, falling just short of the state tournament.
The thing that was interesting about the first three games is they were, in a sense, the same. Zach McClain had a big day because he's 6'9" and he can play. And if, as a matter of fact, Wisconsin Dells had no answer for him at all. They had nothing that they could do to even slow him down. But then they also got good bench play because they got a couple guys in foul trouble. That can happen. But you didn't really notice that because, they played steadily. They may have had one or two more turnovers than they otherwise would have. But they didn't fall apart because two of their starters were out. So that was the key. And then the biggest thing at all, in all three of those games, I thought, was the late run. Platteville was down 4 points to Boston in their first playoff game, and then all of a sudden they reel off a 14 or 16-0 run, and then they do it again, and then they end up winning the game by 34 points. A little bit closer against Lodi on Saturday, but again the same thing, 12-0 run. It was a 1-point game. Well, now they're down 13. You're not going to come back for that,
Right.
And then on Thursday against Wisconsin Dells, they actually gave up some points during the run, but it was 15-3, and suddenly a close game now is not. And the irony of the whole thing about Saturday was they got beat by a team that played their own style.
Right.
And I think that Lakeside Lutheran had a 13-0 run in the second half. And, of course, West Ron had a big second half. He didn't have a very big first half because he got into foul trouble right away, and they took him out. And, he fouled out actually right at the end of the game, but at that point it wasn't, they were up enough that but the credit to Platteville, they're going to go not just because they're playing in the sectional final, but they did get within a basket. They had the free throws very late, and we were arguing that point about, well, should they, deliberately miss the second, well, they just missed the second, and were able to get the rebound, and then, to Lakeside Lutheran's credit, they finished out. They hit their foul shots. We've certainly seen instances of teams not doing that, so that's how you win it. But that was a really fun game, and it didn't seem that way at the end because the wrong team won. But it was a lot of times you see games like this, and they're just, to quote John Facenda from NFL Films, a grim defensive struggle. And this was not. It was flying 3-point shots, dunks, block shots. It was all that fun, really fun stuff from the perspective of the fans. I think I have to believe that anybody who paid the money to go to that game felt like they'd gotten their money's worth for just a very up and down, back and forth kind of basketball game.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining basketball game to see. The environment in Wisconsin Dells that day was fantastic. Near sellout crowd. Having the indoor track, overseeing everything, and just kind of seeing that all around. It was really cool. And what I thought was very interesting was it was talked about during the pregame interview that you had with Mike Hoosier about finding that team's breaking point. In the second half, that 5 to 10 minutes into the second half of which team has that breaking point. The ironic part was that was when Platteville's breaking point was that led to that 13-0 run that put Lakeside Lutheran on top, and Platteville, to their credit, battled all the way back, got to within a basket. You had the late free throws, that huge three by Garrison Tashner, that straight ahead three to bring them within a one possession game. But yeah, Lakeside Lutheran just had enough in the tank to come away with the win, and Platteville finishing with a 24-4 record on the season. And you've been following Platteville sports quite a bit over the last few years. Kind of quantify what this season means accomplishment wise, because in both football and basketball, a lot of these players, or some of these players are play for both sports. But yeah, what a fantastic season for Hillman basketball this year.
Yeah, and the disappointing part is they didn't get to state. Well, you know what? I can name 400 something teams that didn't get to state either. But if you look, this has been a real turnaround. 4 years ago, when these seniors were freshmen, Platteville won 5 games.
Right.
As sophomores, some of them started to play, part of the rotation, and they kind of surprised everybody and finished with a winning record in second place in the conference. Last year, as juniors, they tied for the title with Dodgeville, and I don't think people saw that coming. They looked at Dodgeville with 7'2" kid. They had to share the titles.
Right.
And then this year, totally dominated the SWC. There was, the closest win they had was 12 points against River Valley. It wasn't that close,
Right.
So, and then you add to that football where, other than, squeaking one out over Lancaster, they basically, and they had an 8-point win over Broadhead Judah. But other than that, they basically dominated the conference. And to me, still kind of the biggest win of the year to me, other than being Lancaster, because they're your arch rivals, is to go to Prairie du Chien and shutting them out. That was one of even more so than beating Broadhead Judah the week before, which was a great defensive effort. But then to go to Prairie du Chien, and a team that because their coach said that they were going to try to run the ball and keep the ball away from Platteville. Well, didn't work. They didn't score any points at all,
right.
And I think it was that Prairie du Chien game that think, wow, this team really might be something, and to win conference titles and really dominate the conference, and to, there had been a Platteville team that had gotten to the sectional final in 31 years. And so those are great accomplishments. And the kind of sad reality of it is Platteville, they've had success here and there in basketball, but it hasn't been a consistent thing, certainly. Well, they certainly have the last couple of years. And if you like the style, remember what Mike Hoosier said after the game, he kind of felt like they were going to be cranking it up again next year. So, I'll have to drink a lot of coffee before I do their games, because it's going to be up tempo.
Yeah, load up on the tee too, because there's going to be a lot of ball movement and a lot of threes put up, and give big shout out to Mike Hoosier. He's one of the first team all good guys around the area. Of course, he helps us out with some of our sports coverage during the football season as well. But yeah, a very fun team, a very fun season for the Hillman, and a very accomplished season for Platteville, falling just short of the state tournament, that 75-77 or 75-71 loss to Lakeside Lutheran. Again, the same team, or the same school that knocked Platteville out during the football season, knocks them out.
What are you going to say
in basketball? Yeah,
there have been numerous instances. I mean, how many teams have had good seasons end at Cuba City's hands in basketball, boys and girls basketball over the years? Just kind of how it happens,
right?
And there's not good explanations for it, or or whatever. But that's just a thing, and one of the lessons that you learn in sports is that life isn't fair. And, there have been some teams that got to state and you look, how do they manage that? Well, that was great out there, and then there have been great teams over the years that didn't even win the conference because they kept running into the team that was their nemesis, and you don't usually see that with non-conference sorts of situations, but I guess Platteville has this last season with Lakeside Lutheran for whatever that means.
Right. Yep, exactly. But again, congratulations to Platteville on a successful season, making it to the sectional final, just one game away from going to state. They do graduate quite a few seniors, from this basketball team. I know Sam Babel. Trying to remember who the other ones were.
David Edge, Garrison Tasher, and of course Zach McLean, and the Mum brothers off the bench, and also Keegan Coffey. I think I may have missed somebody, but the thing. Gavin Vose, who turned out to have a big role in the postseason on Thursday when during that foul trouble, and they he had hardly played. They bring him in and don't miss a beat basically. Right. So, but. They've got Lucas Ludlam coming back. He is unquestionably one of the best players in the area, one of those multiple tool kind of guys. Myron Ryder will certainly be starting. And, every year there seems to be somebody that's like, where'd this guy come from? And I think that there may be people who aren't even on the roster this year who will be contributors next year. So, I don't, whether they're the conference champ next year or not, way too early to tell. Right. You don't want to be one of those people. It's let's figure out the 2029 NFL draft, or some dumb thing like that. But, but the reality is that this is a well-run program. It's obvious by what you see, and it isn't just how what the results are, but it's how they play and how they comport themselves off the floor and all of those sorts of things. And so. Certainly, Platteville basketball is in good hands right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach Hoosier mentioned in postgame as well that the players that he has coming back, even the ones that were on the bench, could be potential starters on other teams, in the area, and they'll be tasked with replacing those graduating seniors next year. And it should be a fun, exciting brand of basketball for the Platteville Hillmen coming up next year as well. So again, a reminder. Mineral Point taking on La Crosse Aquinas in the Division IV state semifinal on 97.7 Country WGLR at around 8 o'clock on Thursday night. And if the Pointers do win, we'll follow them to the Division IV state championship on Saturday afternoon, also on 97.7 Country WGLR. Just one team left, Steve, with all the chaos and everything that we had during this basketball season. We were just talking with Shark earlier about the girls basketball successes. 3 teams from Southwest Wisconsin getting to the state tournament, but a very successful season for our boys basketball programs as well. A very interesting tournament. The seedings really held serve throughout most of the brackets as far as our local teams go. But boy, there were some fantastic matchups, some fantastic basketball over the last 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely there was. We didn't even mention Potosi's season. They had a great season as well. That you kind of tend to, but they didn't. But it's basketball. Well, sports seasons are. The postseason is a sprint, but the regular season is a marathon, and I kind of feel like a lot of people kind of forget the importance and the significance of winning conference titles, as an example. And, Potosi managed to hold off River Ridge to win the Six Rivers West, and they took on a very difficult postseason or a non-conference schedule because let's remember they got Darlington in the tournament in Lancaster, and they played Platteville and they played Mineral Point. I don't know if you can find 3 harder teams for a Division V school to play, but as far as the postseason went, it's kind of funny how things don't necessarily turn out the way you think they're going to, and in retrospect you can see why. Remember back in December we were talking about maybe we'll have an Uppana versus Uppana matchup in the sectional final. Would have been fun to have that. That isn't how it worked out. Mineral Point Darlington was a coin flip. Everybody kind of knew that. We were all kind of surprised that the game wasn't really that close. This is the postseason is a great time and it's a terrible time because, well, I mean, think about it. If you win, you're alive for another week,
right,
or another couple of days, possibly. And the finality of losing, if you lose a game in January, well, you got the next game,
right?
But the finality of losing in the postseason is just, that's it. And the thing is that, with the one exception of a team that doesn't have any seniors, which sometimes you see, but not very often. But for the most part, you always see players that have kind of a, if you didn't play, you have kind of a, well, why are they reacting like that? They lost. They feel like it's a, but what it is they, sometimes you get the realization at the same time that you're not going to play these guys with these guys anymore. You're not going to ride a bus to school. You're not going to hang out with them. You're not going to have a team meal with them. You're not going to sit and listen to your coach's dumb jokes during film sessions or whatever. Whatever happens this year is over, and next year, regardless of what happens, is going to be different because the guys who were there a year ago, some of them aren't going to be there anymore. And I don't know, maybe that's something that when you get older you realize it. I'm not sure sometimes 16, 17-year-old kids do, but I do think seniors understand that. Go way back to November in that interview that I had on the field after the state Division VII football game, and here's a guy, and he's just beside himself. Not that they got beat, but saying,
it's over. Yeah,
I'm not playing with these guys anymore, and that's a hard realization, and it's a realization that everybody gets to eventually. Even the state champions, they're not going to be, teary-eyed over there because they won the game. They won the state championship. But at some point, it does sink in that, I did all these things with these guys, and now that's over.
Right.
And so it's the finality. As I said, it's great, and it's kind of really an emotional experience as it turns out.
The finality and then the abruptness of it, especially if you lose, the realization of, we just lost a game. My career's done. You might not be, unless you're, going to be playing at, the college level, this is, probably the last time you'll be putting on a uniform for, for basketball. So,
and for your team and your coach and player, your parents and friends and everybody who came over to watch you, and we didn't have, I don't think, a buzzer beating finish, but that's the ultimate in finality is when you end up getting punted out of the playoffs because of a buzzer beater. That's where it really sticks. Didn't have that, but
actually we did with Taylor Williams getting the buzzer beater against Cuba City. So
I forgot that already.
That feels like an eternity ago.
That was so 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're looking to see how the Pointers finish things out at the state tournament at the Cole Center. Thanks again, Steve, for joining us to recap the boys basketball action that we had during the sectional round, and that will wrap up this week's episode of the Queen Bee Radio High School Sports Roundup. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for another episode next week.